September 6th, 2011, soon to be September 11th, a significant date for lots of people in lots of places. We're on Elm Street in Champlain with Robbie Clark and friends. And if you think the four of us are going to start this program by singing "I've Been Working on the Railroad," boy, are you way off base. I didn't bring my harmonica today, and I'm sorry I didn't gargle this morning. Robbie, how are you?
All righty, Woody.
I'm so glad. Who are your friends over here?
Okay, over there is Mr. Joe Dumar.
Hey, Joe, how are you doing?
Pretty good, yourself?
Champlain's finest. And Shazy. Shazy, is that where you went to school?
Yes, sir.
All right, and?
Tim Richmond.
Timmy.
Living in Point of Fair for the summers. Go back to Wyoming for the winters.
He's by nature, if not profession, he's the old philosopher. He's already given us some little bits of wisdom, enough to take us through most of the day today, if we can only make it stop raining. We have had Hurricane Irene and who knows what else in the last week or so.
Darn right. And I told Gordy when he came, I said, we got to start building that art because I think we're going to need it.
I know, and I brought up Bill Cosby's great album, which included a bit about Noah and how long can you tread water.
Yeah.
Robbie, you're interested in so many things. We've talked to you several times and your wonderful late dad and mom and lighthouses and who knows what all, but
Yes.
Railroads?
Yeah, doggone it. Where'd that come from?
What's up with the Rutland Railroad and Robbie Clark here?
Well, I'll tell you what, it all started when I was a little fella. And my dad kind of indoctrinated me into it.
Really?
Yeah, and anyway, actually right here, as you know, the Rutland ran right by the house and serviced the Sheridan Iron Works and was a major contributor to, getting all their freight moved and bringing in all their supplies in. And the reason why I called you guys together today to do this show is because of the significance of September 25th, 1961, 50 years ago, that the strike took place that ended the Rutland as we know it. And so that's how I wanted to get
Another
together.
significant date to remember among all the others.
I know.
And this is also long before you were born. And
Yes.
a couple of us in this room might have been born when there was a great song called "The Railroad Runs Through the Middle of the House." You remember that, don't you? I knew you would. And there are other railroad songs too. So, of course, a lot of things in the railroad are made of iron.
Yes.
And some of the stuff, I don't know if any of the stuff was made at Sheridan Iron Works.
Not for the Rutland. They may have made some different things that I'm not aware of. I know they made, the early foundry made some car wheels, I believe,
No kidding.
for the railroads. Now, whether it ended up on the Rutland, God only knows. But, as my grandfather, Connie, as they call him, Robert C. Clark, used to say, it was a Heinz 57 varieties up at Sheridan Iron Works.
Yeah.
So you name it, they made it. And there's very few places in the country that weren't touched by a Sheridan Iron piece of machinery. So, but like I say, that the whole purpose of what we're getting together today for is to discuss what happened with that strike and how it more or less ended, the way of life for a lot of people, because the railroad was so interconnected with all the communities.
Always, everywhere.
And of course, then that began the era of the 18-wheelers and other forms of shipping. But to us guys here in this room, the railroad was always very close to our hearts. And I think Timmy can vouch for that, and Joe as well. Joe started it, and he was a little fella too, with his grandfather, Joe Barcombe, who brought him around and showed him, the significance of the railroad, and especially down here on the trestle going across from Windmill Point, Elberg, to Ross's Point. So it all centered around that for a good portion of.
Have you walked a lot of miles on the old track beds?
I have, yeah.
All of you? You guys too?
Oh, yeah.
That's why you're in good shape.
Not so much me, but I know where a lot of it is.
Yeah. Well, what sparked your interest in the beginning?
I don't know how to start. I've always had an interest in trains. When I was about 13 or 14, my dad would bring our family to Shazy Landing, and one day he took me up to the D&H Roundhouse here in Rouse's Point.
That was a spectacle for a little guy, huh?
That was a great spectacle for a little guy. And that really cemented my feelings for the North Country. And I've always been a train nut, but that D&H experience, I've ridden on the Rutland. I can remember from Shazy landing a black pall of smoke hanging over Alberg.
Don't you love it? Don't you love it?
Yeah.
You can hear the sound in your head, can't you?
You bet.
You can hear the brakes, you can hear the whistle.
You bet.
Anybody your age and my age who isn't in love with steam, huh?
They just don't know what they're missing.
They don't have any idea. Fondest memories of my childhood. Your childhood was a lot later than our childhood, but how'd you get involved?
Well, actually, my story is not too dissimilar from his. Going around with my grandfather, of course, living in Ross's Point, he would bring me up to the roundhouse and around the yards, and it's just something that I took a liking to right out of the gate, and I've got very fond memories, and I actually do remember when the roundhouse was still going right at the end.
You do.
Yeah, after
You're on
CP
the-
took over for the
You
D&H.
were just...
Yeah, I was only about yay tall.
Ah.
There's actually a picture of me standing out in front of the turntable with everything in the background.
You know, it's a great pleasure for Calvin and I, Hometown Cable and that camera that he mans, although you don't see his face very often,
Yes.
to have covered myriad topics that are close to the railroad business.
Yes.
All the way from here up into Canada, the history of railroads. There are some quiet heroes, some quiet train nuts up here who don't talk about it much, but they have nice collections
Yeah.
burrowed away in their homes and businesses. And there are others like Robbie who don't mind telling the world about his fascination with railroads. You said the magic words. Railroads affected every facet of life in this country, and there aren't very many small towns that the railroad went by
That's right, Gordy.
who didn't lay their entire history and responsibility to the railroads
Exactly.
for creating them.
Their whole lives were centered around that because that was the heartbeat of America, if you will, or the world for that matter. Like I say, until other forms of transportation finally, took over.
So you've collected things over
Yeah.
the years.
Well, like I say, my
Big
dad.
things,
my-
little things. Your dad
Right.
started
My
it. So
dad.
many
My
things.
dad was the one. I mean, like I say, I'm more or less in charge of trying to keep it going now. But he's the one that really, I got to give him credit where credit's due. He's the one that took down all the different things that we're going to look at today, hopefully, and and Joe here and Tim, and we're trying to preserve these things now. And our friend Larry Marnes was going to come down today too, but he had a previous commitment. And as you know, we had a short time to work with to try to get this into Calvin's window because Calvin's a very busy fellow with all the things
Calvin's got
that
a
he does.
busy window, up and
He's,
down, in and out, all
extremely
around.
busy. And
It's a busy time
I
of the
want
year.
to change windows with him.
It's a busy time of the year, but our fans of our little corner and Calvin's programs for so many years know all about Larry Marnes because we did spend one of the most enjoyable programs I've done over
Yes.
the years, right there at his little
At his depot.
Depot.
Yes. And of course Bob Venn too did a show, and
Yeah.
so like I say, it's a culmination of all these different shows together, and so it's I thought it was kind of nice to show what little stuff I have compared to what Larry has, but
Oh, it's great stuff, and may it be preserved forever.
I hope.
There won't be a lot of external funds involved. It's hard to get people interested in your personal hobbies.
Yes.
But I'm sure that there isn't one person watching this program who doesn't have some kind of an interest in the railroad for one reason or another. Huh? Have you guys got your own collections of stuff or what?
I'm working on it.
Hey, you got some things? How about you?
You bet.
Yeah.
Model trains, D&H collectibles from other railroads, paperwork, dining car china, lanterns. Don't have any of the big stuff like
I'm
Robbie.
so glad I am. People do collect stuff. That's what my wife calls it. That's what
Good stuff.
some of our leading comedians have called stuff.
Buried treasure.
Yeah, I call it treasure too. Other people might call it stuff. But there are so many ways to collect things, and we've seen some of those collections. What do you want to show us first, Robbie?
Well, I'd like to start out, or maybe we could pause a second and I'll just get this stuff out.
Well, okay, we can pause a second.
Okay.
All right, we think we're organized. History might prove us wrong, but we think we're organized, at least for the moment.
For the
Robbie.
moment, for the
What are we
moment.
looking at in the middle of
Okay,
that middle?
this middle is basically a 44-ton locomotive. That's what they call it. It's a locomotive that they use to scrap unfortunately, our beloved Rutland Railroad. And you asked about how young I was. Well, I was 3 years old in that picture.
Were you really?
April 16, 1965. That's a picture of my dad and myself and Dolores Secor.
Oh, there's a familiar name.
Right, and there's in the volume 6, part 2 of Nimke's book, and there's a picture of him here taken in 1951 on the far right.
Oh, look at this, right here.
Yeah,
Isn't that beautiful?
so it's kind of nice to have been with one of the original Rutland engineers too. And we, on that train, I got to go as far as Moores, up around Larry Station. But unfortunately, I don't really remember it other than the pictures because I was, as you know, pretty darn young.
So what else have you got?
Okay, well,
So what else do you want to see here before we move along?
like I say, I got.
Give me a picture, any picture you want to show, and I'll hold it up for Calvin.
All right.
Put it on the table.
Put it on
Okay.
the
You want
table.
it back in the center?
Sure.
Okay. All right. There's a picture of me and my little dog Princess, and this is before they pulled the rails. And you can see a switch stand in the picture. Matter of fact, you can see it a little better here in this photo.
Okay.
And
Who took all these pictures? Your dad?
yeah, my mom and my dad, between the two of them,
You used to tell them to go play on the tracks.
Yeah,
Yes,
go play.
yeah.
Go play on the street.
playing the tracks.
Oh boy.
These are all the different switch stands, and if you look, there's one there with a lever up on the very top of the switch stand. And what's significant about that is it would go into the shop, and it would bring in the cars would come in on that track. And when the fellas would get off the train and throw the switch, there was some type of a lever attached to that one particular switch stand. And then, as I recall my dad saying, it was like a bell or some kind of a warning thing that would tell the guys to get the overhead door open and so forth, so they could bring the freight load in and unload it. And that's the only stand that I can really identify to say that that's definitely the one that was where it was. There's others in the picture, and I'm not sure exactly where they are all located because they're all very similar. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So.
Yeah, we'll explain the store here that, now.
Right.
Explain what,
Okay, yeah, I need another picture for that, so.
Oh, we had to shut the camera off. 'Cause-
Okay. I wasn't sure if he was still
Are you
shooting
ready?
or not.
Yep.
I don't know if that gives you a little bit better,
little glare on
a
the
little bit,
glass.
Is that better?
if that gives you a little better view of,
You have it. Okay.
How's that? Okay, go ahead.
okay, you can see in that picture, like I say, the main line that's going by the Sheridan Iron Works, and then there's another siding, and then there was another, actually a double siding, one that went into the shop, and then the one that was like a passing siding. And then there was another one on the far end, which you can't see, which went into the other end of the shop, which would be on the east end of the building. And these pictures that I just showed you a second ago, these were taken on the west side of the building. Gives you some idea.
All right, terrific. What else you got?
We can contrast it. This picture, when he starts up again there.
I'm on.
You're on, okay. That picture here, I believe, was taken about 1950. This was taken in October of '69, so roughly 19 years difference. And that's the only really good color aerial photo that I have. But what's nice about the picture is you can see some of the changes because the rails had been pulled for about maybe 4 or 5 years. And the road in that picture, you can see where the road used to go. And the road no longer goes exactly that way. It was changed. And hopefully when the weather cooperates here, we'll go up and we'll show you exactly how it went and how it was.
It says, since 1927, aerial surveys by Henry DeWolf. Somehow your father got a hold of that.
He got a hold of it, yes.
Maybe he even knew the guy, I don't know.
He may have.
He knew everybody else.
He seemed to know quite a few different people over his 92 years of existence, yes.
A moment in history that's captured on that. on that
Exactly.
photograph.
As a matter of fact, Calvin, if you look at that, I don't know if you want me up there to point, or,
Just tell us.
yeah, there's a little shed that you can see, and I think Tony Fillion, Tony, who's still alive and in his early 90s also, he moved that over to his trailer court over behind us here. And I don't know, I think the thing's still out there somewhere amongst the trailers and so forth.
Really?
Yes. And then, of course, as you go up that road, the first house on the left would have been the William Bill Carey and his family's home. And the purchasing department actually used that for a few years when they were putting the addition on the shop. So my dad and all the purchasing people were working out of that, and they eventually tore the house down. And then right across from them, there was another old building called Gus Seberg was the guy that lived there. And the last family that I knew lived there was the Robert Smith family. And then next to that house, going down that street, is Dan Obry. Dan Obry was a longtime employee at Sheridan Iron Works, and right across the street was his son Clyde. And then down at the end, the street used to stop. It didn't go all the way around. It stopped there, and that was Edison Obry, another brother. And Edison run a lathe just like the one I've got in my shop here, the Hendy lathe back here. So, like I say, there was a lot of the shop employees that were up there at one time, and all, saw trains going back and forth. And I know that they used to talk about they'd have to get their clothes off the line because the soot from the steam engines would kind of ruin the white clothes if you put your laundry out to dry at the wrong time. You know what I'm saying?
How many other people in this area are as big a fan as you are of the railroad?
Well,
Are there others besides us, these
oh
three
yeah,
guys in this
I
room?
mean, well, obviously,
Are there? Is there a loose-knit or tightly-knit club of any kind? Do you meet on a regular basis or just call up and say, hey, come on over?
yeah, we have Tim and I are in the Bridgeline Historical Society now. That's Delaware and Hudson. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, and like I say, I recently met a fellow by the name of Andy Claremont who was very interested in the Rutland, and he actually just signed me up into the Rutland Historical Society.
Great.
And there is quite a few people, and a matter of fact, in the Bridgeline, I think, Timmy, the other day I was reading, I think there was somebody from down in the Carolinas that's in that group for up here. So, you got people all around the world basically that are interested, that join up. So.
And Andy is Lois Claremont's brother.
Right.
Oh, there you go. How
Right,
about that? I
right.
did not know that.
And
All right.
there again, I got a few pictures of Andy's what he's modeling. If you guys care to look at that.
We care to do whatever you want to show us.
All right.
We got an hour and a half, and we'll kill it in 90 minutes if we get the chance. I think the rain is just about stopping, unless it all fell on Calvin's head. I'm not sure, but I don't even see the mist in the air, and that's okay with me. So maybe we're good to go for 15 minutes or so, huh?
Okay. All right.
So let's keep rolling. What do you got?
All right. Now these are some pictures of Andy. Andy's got a really nice layout, and all of us are just dying to get down there and take a look at what he's modeled. But these are just a very small sampling of what he's done. Now this is the
Want me to put it on the table, Calvin, and give it a shot?
This is the trestle, and this is looking west towards Ross's Point. And this is taken about midway, this next picture, and this would be taken also going the same direction in a westerly manner towards Ross's Point into the setting sun.
Train number 9 with Norwood bound freight.
Yeah.
Look at those great engines.
Yeah. And like I say, now, believe it or not, these are models, and I was showing them to Larry the other day. We were talking about it, and he had a friend with him, and he said, my God, he says, is that the real thing? I said, nope. I said, that's a model. And I showed him this other picture, which we're about to see, and he saw the lights up there, the flashing lights, and he said, oh, if I didn't see those lights, I would have thought it was a real thing for sure. So that's how darn good they are.
Some people are very fastidious when it comes to making models.
They most certainly are.
We've had the pleasure of interviewing a number of people in model railroading
You have?
of all kinds
Yeah.
over the years, and some great shows that they put on for the rest of us
Yeah.
who don't know much about it. So that's
Right,
terrific.
right.
Those are wonderful,
Yeah,
huh?
and there, of course, is a model of Larry Station, as you probably can tell.
Oh, Oh, yeah, what a station it is for the people who don't know about it. And you know what, while we're on the subject, I don't mind interjecting the fact that I am pleased to see what they're doing with some of the historic stations in this area and other areas. I mean, we've seen what they've tried in some communities and not always been successful because it costs a lot of money, takes a lot of volunteer effort, but we're pleased to have done one half of what we think will be 2 complete shows in Lion Mountain on the railroad aspect of it and the mining. We started with the mining and we're about to get to the railroad. If we hear that old whistle blow, we'll know we get to the railroad. Okay, what's next? We're moving and grooving
I
here.
guess you are. You're a little fast, I'm a little slow.
Well, I'll speed you up. I saw that crank in the back of your neck, and I'll twist it every now and again, Robbie. We're in Champlain on Elm Street talking with Robbie and friends about the Rutland Railroad. Look at that, huh? All right, you ready? We'll talk about it. All right, can you see this, Calvin? All right, what is it?
Okay, that's what they call the Rutland Newsliner. And anyway, that is one that they put out to celebrate, not the quadricentennial, but the, I guess, what, tercentenary, I guess? I can't never pronounce that right.
Close enough, 300 years.
Right.
350th,
There we go.
the 350th.
Right.
Oh, it was, so
And
that
I-
wouldn't be the tercentennial then.
I know, I had an idea you guys hadn't seen one of those, so I thought that
That's really nice.
you get a kick out of seeing that.
Yep.
And so now I want to show you what they've done is the Historical Society has come out with the same, as you can see, they've more or less followed the same format. A matter of fact, I got another one here that's more like it, but it just gives you an idea. What they've done is they've followed that original idea that the Rutland, when the original corporation was still running, and what they've done is they've made this little newsletter for the members, and it's something comes out quarterly.
That's nice.
Yeah.
It's heavier than the original, too.
Yeah.
So more pages.
More pages, and yeah.
Thicker paper, good.
And anyway, I don't know. There's the little article that's in here that would be of interest, which is the one that Andy did, Andy Claremont of Dewey Cut. And as you guys know, Dewey Tavern.
Yep.
There's Dewey Cut. And anyway, Andy there again he's looked and looked for a lot of pictures, and how it happened to meet Andy is he called me this spring and he said he was looking for Lucky Clark, like to talk to him. I said, well, I'd like to talk to him too.
Wouldn't we? Maybe we can arrange that on Halloween night, huh?
Possibility.
We'll bring Houdini back, we'll bring Lucky back that day.
Sounds like a plan.
He's probably hovering over us right now, we don't know.
I have a feeling he probably is.
He probably is.
And so anyway, he had really searched and searched for pictures of that bridge when it was, to get a shot of the train or whatever going through Dewey Cut, and he never could. But he did manage to get some stuff that were on the state, records, the town highway departments and so forth.
Yeah.
And these following pictures are the sketches of that actual bridge. The way he's hoping, like I say, he did come up and met with me, and he's trying to build a model to go along with those pictures I showed you a few minutes ago, and he's going to try to finally incorporate the Sheridan Iron Works into that, into that diorama or layout or however you want to describe it. So, like I say, I wish him luck, and I'm sure that if anybody can do it, Andy will. So.
Well, we should point out again exactly where Dewey Cut is. It's located just to the south of the northeastern Clinton ball fields. As you're approaching, there's a little tree line there, and you can see where the tracks went under. So that Dewey Cut was just to the south of the ball fields.
Yeah, because I'm sure people from outside this area wouldn't know it. You can put your 2 cents in anytime you want to, young man.
Well, I was going to ask Robbie if he had a copy of Jim Shaughnessy's book that was published in 1964,
Yes,
The Rutland Road.
I sure do.
Because I believe there's a photo of a double-headed steam train coming out of Dewey Cut, running behind what is now Parker Chevrolet.
Oh, come on!
I think so, but I'm not 100% certain.
If there is, we might have seen it because we spent about 6 hours with Jim Shaughnessy up in Stowe a few years ago and had a lot of fun doing several
That
programs.
picture is not behind Parker Chevy, actually. It's up on the other side, just as it's coming around by the golf course.
All
Just
right.
before it crosses the crossing on
Golf course road?
Golf Course Road, yes.
Just be careful because it's pretty ripe. I took the dust jacket off. I want to point out that Timmy and I, when we go down to our meetings, we actually usually sit with Jim Shaughnessy and John Pickett, who also is a friend of his that has that cover picture in the beginning of his book. And it's neat to sit with Jim and, you know, shoot the breeze with him and have a good meal, so.
You think you're a pretty smart guy up on history, and you meet Jim,
And you say, oh boy, I don't know nothing.
isn't it amazing how many hundreds of thousands of photographs he's collected and taken? in
And
his
still,
lifetime?
and still doing.
And still active.
And still doing. That's
That
what's
was
so
quite a few
amazing.
years ago, maybe,
Yes.
what, 12 years ago, maybe, that
Yes.
we,
Yes. Yeah.
oh,
Jim's just done a book called The Call of Trains. I don't know if you fellas heard about it.
No, I haven't.
And
Tell me about it.
that features more of the pictures that aren't local, that are, you know, throughout all his different, you know, places that he's been. And I can't even begin to remember. Maybe these fellas might know off the top of their head, you know, specifically what railroads. You know that Shaughnessy's book, The Call of Trains, his latest book?
haven't heard of
Yeah.
that
Well, anyway, it's fairly new. And I've just thumbed through it, but I haven't got a copy of it to really study it, so.
That's nice. So you have a regular library of books
Yeah, I do.
about the Rutland Railroad.
Yes, I do, and like I said, I want to show you another book that you guys, I doubt, have seen. And these are called Morning Sun books, and I really,
That's nice.
and that is all in color. And as you know, all these other books, Nimke's books, Shaughnessy's books, most of them, the old books on the D&H and Rutland, are all black and white. But when you get a chance to have actual colored photos of the Rutland, it's a real treat.
That's amazing, especially what I know about the publishing and printing business, and it costs a lot of money
Oh my God, yes.
to print in color.
It-
So that's great.
It is.
Oh, my. Isn't
Yeah.
that wonderful?
Yes,
Ah,
yeah,
just love it.
yeah.
Do you know every engine? Do you know
All the locomotives, you mean,
Yeah.
or the roster? Yeah, I mean, I know that there's one locomotive left of the Rutlands, a 405, and it's what they call an RS1. The model that I have here is what they call an RS3. The RS3 had about 500-600 more horsepower than the RS1. And anyway, those are, as far as I know, have all been, you know, scrapped. I don't think there's any of the RS3s. I don't believe there's any steam locomotives. The only one, like I say, is that 1951, I believe, RS1 that's still in existence. So, you know,
there are some good railroad museums around this country and up in Canada, and we
Yes.
visited a few.
yes, I know you have,
That's
yes,
great.
it
Did you
is.
find the picture, guys? Oh, yeah,
we
of
did.
course, I knew. So which one do you want to look at? Last one on the top? Okay. Huh?
Lay it down.
Okay, I will.
Let me just get these out of the way.
Take your time. Don't create any injuries.
Yes.
All right, here we go. Tell me about it now. It's your turn.
Well, I think Joe knows more about it than the location than I do. I was off by about half a mile to the
that all?
west. Yeah,
Ah, among friends.
but it's east of Highway 276,
Right.
east of Dewey Cut, about a quarter of a mile, where the Rutland crossed what would be Prospect Street, the Chapman Street extension.
Yeah, Golf
from
Course Road.
No, Prospect Hill Road is called.
Prospect Hill, okay.
Yep.
Which is now covered with trees. You can barely see, there's a snowmobile path existing now on the old
The old
right-of-way.
bed?
Yep.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's buried in trees.
So nothing left that would really indicate that to you, huh?
Only the trained eye, I think, would identify it, or
yeah.
or ATV riders or snowmobiles. They'd recognize a path. They may not know the origin of it.
Well, we're here to tell them. Isn't that a great picture?
Yeah, well, they were following the train coming up. That picture right there was taken out on the end of Sportsman's Pier.
Oh, really?
Yeah, looking out at the draw. This was just up past the Diamond in Ross's Point,
Right.
before the creamery.
Yep.
This was up, like we said, just here by Prospect Street, and then this is up at Moore's.
Isn't that great? Isn't that great? How many books has Shaughnessy done? Does anybody know? What would you guess?
Boy.
It's a lot. It was a lot when we saw him then.
Right, and
I know there are quite a few more in the last 13, 14 years.
I'm only really familiar with the three that Robbie just mentioned,
Yeah.
and I have the copy of the Call of Trains also.
Oh, you do?
Which is a beautiful book, but it covers railroads nationwide. There's pictures of Union Pacific out west from California and Wyoming. And if I didn't have to think about it, I could tell you which ones they are, but I can think about it. So.
I hate it when you have to think about things. Oh, okay. My wife Kay and I laugh about it every morning over our coffee. Do you remember so-and-so? No. Can you give me a hint? No. So in the middle of the night, you'll jump up and say, I remember his name was Fred.
So you asked Gordy about locomotives. Well, this is a Green Mountain Railroad. I don't know if Calvin can get that.
Of course he can.
Okay. Now, this is significant because what happened when the Rutland went into receivership, bankruptcy, whatever you want to call it, and they shut down the Rutland on this end, the Vermont side survived for the most part. And it was divided up for a while into two entities, the Vermont Railway and Green Mountain Railroad. And the founder of the Green Mountain Railroad was a guy by the name of F. Nelson Blount. And he was a big seafood man. And anyway, that's how he made his money. And he got it. He loved railroads, and he is the founder of Steamtown.
Oh, been there, done that. What a
And-
place, huh? You have too, I can tell.
And anyway, this is a picture of that RS-1 I was telling you about. And this particular, I don't know if Calvin's angle is good here or not. This particular locomotive was for Rutland Railroad Historical Association, or the groups, get together. And anyway, in the spring, and the coach car is a Rutland Pullman car that's behind it as well. And Dad and I were sitting over in St. Albans at the CV yard talking to Robert Harmon. He was one of the head guys there. And he had this calendar on his wall, and I didn't even know that they had these calendars, lo and behold. I says, how does a fella get one of these calendars? So he got up from his chair, reached down, took the thing off the wall, and said, you got a calendar.
That's what friends do, right?
Exactly.
So what were you going to say about Steamtown?
Well, Robbie's mentioned it. Steamtown was first founded in Bellows Falls. And then after Mr. Blunt passed away, it was moved to Scranton, Pennsylvania, where it's become a national historical park
Oh, yeah. Fabulous.
operated by the U.S. National Park Service.
It's amazing, isn't
It
it?
is, it is.
Isn't that amazing? And I bet you guys know where how many of those similar things have you visited in the country?
Not that many.
Nothing that big, but there are other places where you see a few or a lot.
There are a lot of railroad-oriented attractions, as you say, all across the country. The most recent that I haven't visited, but one that would be of interest to your viewers, would be the Saratoga and North Creek, which just opened up. It operates on a branch of the former branch of the Delaware and Hudson from Saratoga Springs on up to, does it go as far as North Creek, Robbie?
I think, I'm not sure, I'm supposed to ride on that train with Bill Crosby. You guys know
Oh, yes, very
Bill
well.
and some of our other railroad friends, hopefully sometimes before the year is out, but I'm not sure if that'll happen yet or not.
But getting back to the subject at hand, the Rutland, the Green Mountain Railway has been taken over by the state of Vermont, as has the Vermont Railway. And the Green Mountain runs tourist excursions, especially during the fall, for foliage viewing. And if one could go to their website, and I'm not sure what it is, www.green mountain or maybe Vermont Railways,
Something like that, yeah.
but that would give a schedule of their proposed fall foliage tours. We have one that comes, operates on the old New York Central, and it runs out of Thendara back down toward Utica. And that is quite a popular train, tourist train ride. Then we have another one, a couple of them in New Hampshire, Connecticut, New Jersey. Who wants to go to Colorado to see the Toltecs, Cumbres and Toltec, or the Durango Silverton? But these are world-famous trains, and literally, they're just everywhere.
They're all over, and I've had the pleasure of filming quite a few down south through Tennessee and through northern Georgia and North Carolina. That's nice. What's that?
The reason why I'm showing this picture is you guys follow the news, and that's the Bartonsville, Vermont bridge that washed away.
Did you watch it happen?
That's a nice shot with that 405 locomotive going by it, and as you know, that the bridge is no longer in existence.
Somebody happened to have the camera
Yes.
going on their telephone.
Yes, just had enough.
And it was just, you want to cry because covered bridges have a great nostalgia feeling for all of us. We don't have very many left here. We followed the one up in Upper J, and the new bridge when it opened. We were there, and I got miles and miles of 8mm footage from the old days. Yes.
Well, I just remembered another tourist line. The Adirondack Scenic runs from Lake Placid to Saranac Lake and beyond.
Talked to our friend Bill and Gail up at the Crystal Caboose.
Yes.
He was the engineer when Calvin stood on the cowcatcher and caught all the bugs, and I was inside where it was nice. I kid Bill about it and Calvin every now and again, but don't you love it when people preserve things? You guys are desperate to preserve whatever you can, but somebody takes an old caboose like they did up there and turn a little
phenomenal.
Successful little shop. I just love to walk through it and imagine. And of course, I write ghost stories. And Gail told me last night that every now and again, one of the old guys who died in that caboose shows up standing on the back end of it, and just to kind of help her and protect her when Bill's
Yes.
not around.
Absolutely.
I love it.
I do too.
But yeah, when people preserve this history, whether they have a caboose in their backyard or
Anything.
just a switch or a
Anything,
stanchion or whatever they
Right,
have,
because once
you
it's gone to the pages, dusty pages of history, it's gone for good, never to
know? When
return.
you can see the object and touch the
That's
object,
right.
it means a lot. Of course, the photographs are wonderful, and you've got hundreds of photographs that your
Yeah,
family's.
yeah. Well, that's why I wanted to share this with you guys because there's some nice memories for me, and it helped forge my interest in railroads. And we're gonna. Joe's opening up a page.
All right, what do you got, Joe? It's your turn, man.
All right.
What are we looking at?
Well, this was actually taken on the New York side of the trestle, looking back towards Vermont. This is now, to look at it today, would be about where the gazebo is, out at Lighthouse Point Marina, looking back. And the reason why we've got this out is for that particular signal right there, which I'm actually going to let Rob talk about.
Oh, jeez.
All right, talk about the
Jeez,
signal.
didn't I talk enough here?
You've only just begun.
Oh, I know it. Joe's got a shot. Our old friend, the late Earl Parsons, actually ended up getting.
Talk about railroad nuts.
Yes.
Holy
He actually ended up getting. I'm trying to find. Where'd you do with that, Joe? That other
It's
picture.
not in there?
I don't. Well, here. See if you can. I didn't see it. Anyway, back behind Calvin, where Calvin is standing, just behind him is a semaphore that came off of the New York side of the Ross's Point Elberg trestle.
This big tower here?
That there, yes.
That's this.
That's that. And what happened was, and Joe's going to try to dig out the picture. Oral somehow got what they call the spectacle or the head or whatever you want to call it, the thing that where the lights are. He somehow got that before my dad had a chance to get the rest of the semaphore. And so anyway, my dad wanted to make one that was 3 tiers high. And so that's what he ended up doing. He ended up modifying it. And
is that
so I'm gonna show you the picture here when Calvin's
Because that's
Yeah.
that's a monument all by itself here.
That, yeah, it
When's the
is.
last time you climbed to the top of it, Robbie?
Just a couple days ago, actually.
You didn't.
Oh, yeah, you
Just
know.
because you know I was going to ask you that?
Well, it's a lot easier than climbing my dad's tower.
Oh my goodness, you've got to be kidding.
I'd much rather
I don't
climb
think
this
I
than
want to
his.
go up that tower either, or any of the others.
Yeah.
I worked at that radio station for a long time, and I said a prayer for those guys who went to the top to change the light bulbs. They'd take a step and get a shot of RF off that tower, and
Yeah. My
it's
dad,
unbelievable.
my dad built that tower over here at Sheridan in 1952.
Really?
Yeah, and he wanted it for television antenna, believe it or not, because he wanted good TV, and that's the only way he could get it. So he said, "By golly,
We
that's."
put some big antennas up, but nothing like that, I'll tell you that.
So
We took our life in our hands,
Yeah.
put no standoffs in the side of the buildings, right,
Yeah.
Bill?
yeah, and he,
Okay, what do we got here?
that is what they call the spectacle, and that was what was up on that semaphore. That's just that Calvin just took a picture of. And like I say, what happened was Oral somehow got that before my dad had a chance to actually buy the semaphores. And he ended up buying all three of them that were out there. And anyway, what happened was Oral, of course, was a big railroad fanatic too. And so Dad, helped him, and they ended up taking down that semaphore, the one that this picture's taken on here. And I think it was up in Ellenburg. I forget where, the pole, in other words. He wanted a pole so that he could put the thing on there. And so anyway, for some reason, I don't know how come Dad didn't make a deal with him and get the original one, but for some reason, I guess Oral really wanted it for some reason. I don't know the whole story. As you say, we can tell part of the story, but I can't tell the whole story. So Dad went to work, and he decided that he would make his own, scavenging up whatever he could find.
He was good at that.
Yep. And anyway, that's what he did. He put that together. And the very top one, I know where that one comes from. That comes from Burlington Yard, the Rutland Yard over there, which is now Vermont Railway. And there's a nice picture of it here in the book. Get the thing out here. And anyway, my dad got to meet Jay Wilson. Now, Jay Wilson was the founder and the president of Vermont Railway. And anyway, he made a deal with Jay, and he got that semaphore. And there it is.
Right here.
Yes, and this is John Gardner, who's another photographer who I know, that took the picture, I believe, in 1954.
Okay, wonderful.
And
It's just to prove that you're not telling us a bunch of
Right.
baloney here.
Joe, you want to go grab the order board off in the other room, and we'll show you that. And so anyway, like I say, he liked the three high type of semaphores, so he figured if he couldn't have the original exactly the way it was, he'd make up his own. And so he was able to get that one, and we're still trying to figure out exactly where the other two came from. And that's what Joe and I have been trying to calculate on, as to where exactly he got them on the line. I'm sure they're Rutland, but I don't exactly know where. Now, this is what they call the order boards. Joe can tell you a little bit about those.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The order boards represented different things for the way that they were shaped and how they were painted. This particular one here, I believe, would have been what was considered a home signal, or an order board for a home signal, and it was one that was used to stop the trains. That you would see these on the tops of the stations, or in this particular case, out on the bridge.
Yeah.
Same long thing when the bridge was
Oh, I
open.
see,
That
yeah.
would stop the train.
Sure.
And then you get the other. There's several different types. This particular one here, which did actually come off the bridge,
Yes.
and we'll show you the semaphore that it was on there in a few minutes, was an approach signal. And this basically is like a caution light.
Right.
You've got another signal up ahead that you need to be paying attention to.
Right.
Oh, here.
Yep, and that's
If you look closely in the picture, you'll see me sitting down there when my dad took the picture when I was about 3 or 4 years old. And I remember him telling me, "Boy, don't you move," because I would have ended up in the drink.
but that particular fishtail order board
Is that one right
this
there.
one right here.
Right. And then as soon as it dries up a little outdoors, we're going to go out and show you the rest of the devil.
You have what is essentially your own personal museum here.
Well, I like
Have you
to,
ever talked about, I mean, you're sharing it with the public now.
I am, yeah.
But there are people out there watching this in places other than Champlain who
Right.
say, man, I would love to see that sometime.
Yeah.
Ever think of having tours or?
I'd like to, Gordy. I'd like to try to, as you know, when we did the show here 4 years ago with my late dad, we got a lot of what I think pretty neat things.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to somehow be able to share them with the public in the future somehow. And Mom and I haven't quite figured out exactly how we're going to go about doing that. But it's definitely something that I would like to see done.
Well, this kind of thing has to be preserved, and you've done that, and you're all very passionate. It's good to see both age and youth involved in this whole idea. What's this one now? That's the same one?
Yeah, that was starting to restore it. His father had managed to get it off the bridge. This particular signal that you see there was on the Vermont, almost right touching the Vermont shore.
Oh.
And it was what, 1969?
Right. There was a fire in 1969. We were over to Isle of Mont Lighthouse. And of course, my parents had bought the Windmill Point Lighthouse, and this fire broke out. And as I recall, like I say, it was 69, I'm pretty sure. And Dad and my great uncle, Ralph Hockmeister, he was staying with us at the time. They ran over there because they thought the lighthouse was on fire, but it was the trestle that had caught fire. And when it did, this semaphore ended up going in a drink. And we never got it until Joe came along. And we finally got it this past June after 42 years. And
How did you know where it was, Joe?
Well, it's something that my grandfather had shown me, laying on the bottom out next to the bridge.
You could see it?
Yeah, you could see it. And actually, this part right here was almost up to the surface, and the other end was down in the mud. And it just where it had landed when the bridge burnt and the supports gave way underneath it.
Who would ever know that but somebody like you?
Well, the nice thing is my grandfather, in his younger days, actually used to chop ice out on the bridge for the Rutland.
Here we go.
And
I
so
love
he knew about all the stuff that was out there and told me about, the signals and everything. And that was the only one that I knew of that was still in existence before I had met Rob. And, it's just something that's been sitting there for years. And, being the railroad nut that I am, I always wanted to get it.
So tell me what was the process?
Well, I actually have this spring's record high waters to thank for that. We were in a
We can thank them for something?
Yeah, believe it or not. That's the only thing that we can thank them for so far. But I had already met Rob at this point in time and told him that it was still out there. And he says, well, boy, wouldn't that be great to get? And I work here at one of the local marinas, and, we have stuff that floats that has cranes on it. And it was one afternoon we had got done work, and the water was up nice and high, and some friends of mine were out diving on the bridge. And I says, well, there's this thing over there on the Vermont shore. Might you be able to hook a rope onto it for me? And sure, okay. And we went out there. I hopped on the barge and went over, and they hooked the line up, and the water was high enough that I was actually able to get over the top of the bridge, because it had burned down to the water line.
Isn't that amazing? You may never be able to do that again.
Maybe not, but it doesn't matter because it's
Yeah.
out.
So tell me about it. What happened then?
Well, I got it picked up underneath the barge and brought it back to shore, and pulled it out the next day and put it on the trailer, and that's what it looked like. It was just covered in zebra mussels and just in
Mud and muck.
mud and muck and just a god-awful looking
How
state.
heavy would you say?
Oh,
Yes.
I'd put it probably around 1,000 pounds or so.
More than I can lift with my left arm anymore, that's for sure.
Yeah, maybe not quite that heavy, but
So you didn't
Enough.
have any trouble sucking it out of there?
no, actually, the way it landed in the pilings, other than the very tip of it, it was just suspended.
Come on.
Yeah, it was just at an angle going down, hung up in the pilings.
Isn't that amazing? So that wasn't too big a job to whip it out without somebody breaking arms and legs and...
No, hooked the line, lifted it straight up. The current pushed me off the bridge, and I motored back to shore with it.
So you have it here?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, and
We're gonna see it?
We're gonna see it, and we're gonna see one more, and the one that's standing. This is the other story. And
There's
there's
more.
there's more.
Here we are.
This is a Captain Frank
The
Pap story.
rest of the story. The rest, my good friend Frank.
Our good friend Frank in the Juniper.
Okay.
The year is September 7th, 1989.
Doesn't this sound like a documentary?
It's a
The
documentary.
year.
September 27th, excuse me, September 27th, 1989. My dad says, Rob, we got to get that doggone other semaphore, because the other one was in a drink, and we just kind of said, hey, well, maybe we'll get it, maybe we won't. Well, anyway, this one was still standing, and my dad had taken down the one that's up now, the one that Calvin took a picture of a few minutes ago, a few years previous to this. So anyway, this doggone semaphore is out there, and Captain Frank came up, and he had a bunch of guys. I think the name of their outfit was called Quicksilver, and their job was to do work for Gaines Marina for Dick, and Dick was still alive then. And so we made arrangements for them, and we went out with the Juniper, and this, like I say, this is the rig right here with a big link belt crane, and as Captain Frank says, we popped it off. And so, anyway, the doggone thing, they had to use the cutting torches to cut the bolts that were still holding it. And when they did, of course, all that creosote is in all those ties out there. It caught fire. Well, they thought they had put it out sufficiently. But lo and behold, several hours after we got back to Gaines Marina with the semaphore, the thing caught fire and they had to go back out and put it out again.
Little squirt here and there.
And Dad and I says, boy, those poor devils didn't make any money on that job.
Yeah, creosote can burn pretty good.
It burns really good.
Doesn't smell so great.
Don't smell good either.
And actually, this one that they're lifting off right here, this is what it looked like back when it was still going on the bridge. That's the Vermont side looking towards Ross's Point.
It's nice to have the perspective.
Yes.
Before, during, and after.
It is.
Yeah, and it's actually one of the ones that will show you that's outside too. We have all three of them.
You know what just dawned on me?
What's that?
Wouldn't it be nice if at Clinton Community College or some other area institution, they would institute a course in the history of the Rutland Railroad?
They really should. They should have.
Professor. What?
Well, you're opening another door, and maybe that door shouldn't be open just
Oh, what?
right
Get this
now.
door open. I'm out of here soon. You gotta stick around.
Gotta help me clean up.
Yeah.
I am working, and have been for the past couple years, and probably will for the next couple more years, on a book which I've titled The History of Railroads of Clinton County.
Wonderful.
And
Wow.
like all books that delve into history, you don't pick one little thing and ignore everything around it. This is including some maritime history, as well as it's going to have to move into highway, truck, and air. Only they'll be touched superficially, cursory. But it includes all of the railroads that I can find records of in Clinton County. And the underlying theme is the businesses that were served by the railroads, or that were the cause of the railroad to come. And just like Robbie's Sheridan Iron Works was served by the Rutland Railroad, so were the agricultural supply companies. The farmers shipped their milk to the big cities south and east of us by train.
Of course.
And interesting little fact, the refrigerator car was invented by the Rutland Railroad in Malone for the purpose of carrying butter to Boston.
There.
And
Butter to Boston.
little-
There's a ring to it, doesn't it?
You bet.
Don't you love it?
But,
So you're 90% finished with the book.
no, I'm about 10% begun.
I love it.
But we've touched on the Rutland and the business that it served and Robbie's specific interest, but there is so much more, and people today have forgotten about that.
That's why we're here.
My interest started from having a cheeseburger down in what was the Homestead, now the
Isn't that a riot?
Orchard Side
Isn't it
Restaurant
amazing
in
how those
Shazy.
things-
Looking out the window across from the Orchard warehouse, there's a little cut through a little knoll. And that's where the D&H railroad track ran, not only to serve the orchard, but also to serve the limestone quarry and the lime kiln furnaces that were there back
Oh, yeah.
not so many years ago.
Absolutely.
But the people in the restaurant had no
No
idea
clue.
that their restaurant sat on the old right-of-way of that railroad track.
Isn't that amazing? Well, that'll be the first chapter. Then we'll reincarnate Addie Shields for the second chapter.
Yes,
She
Addie.
loved to talk about the railroads and just
did.
about any other piece of
Yes.
history in the area. And we do miss her. She
A
was,
huge loss.
oh my goodness, what a lady. That's great. So we can look forward to that. And you promise we're all going to live long enough to see that come to fruition, huh?
You folks have a better chance of living long enough than I do to finish it.
Oh,
So,
come on. Well, leave your material for somebody else who can do it in the next 50 years. That sounds great. And you got all the notes already. You got it in your head.
I got more on paper than I have in my head.
Oh, you do, really?
Much of what was in my head has already run out.
Oh, yes, I know. You keep shoving it in one side and it squeezes out the other side. I know all about that. That's wonderful. Can't wait to see that. That's terrific. That's like about 6 of the books I've had in the hamper for how many years? What do you got, Rob?
This is a picture of, we talked about J. Wilson, and a lot of railroads name a locomotive usually after one of the, after a person's passed away in their memory. And this was the first GP38 that Vermont Railway had bought brand new, and I think it was 1972. But what's nice about it is if you can look in the far end of the picture, you're going to see that bridge, and you're going to see the semaphore's head missing, the signal missing off the top, because it's here in Champlain, New York. So I thought it was kind of neat to show that picture.
It's so great to be up here with you gentlemen today because, I feel like I get a new college degree anytime I stop at a place like this. Because I know people who like Shaughnessy, have spent their life on their own taking pictures of trains. And these people set up computerized lights. And they'll get to a station, they know exactly what time that train is coming through.
Oh, yeah.
And they got the computer gets this light going and this light going and a little mist coming up over here and this over here. And some of the photographs that these guys produce are incredible.
They are. They're really fantastic.
What else you got?
That was just another shot of, that's the first day of operation, Vermont Railway. And that's the little engine that they had, another little 44-tonner. It proved inadequate, and they ended up returning it and going with the bigger power like I just showed you. But that was a Rutland caboose, and then originally it would have been the green and yellow, but they repainted it with their... Jay wanted to have the strike out and have his own color, so he went nice bright red with white, which I think
does
is
it for me.
very attractive. And as opposed to F. Nelson Blount, who decided to stay with the old Rutland colors, which was really neat too. And to add to the luster here, what was really great is all these railroads are now together. And matter of fact, I don't know if Calvin's got that yet. We can just flip the thing. You can see it a little bit better contrast. But what's nice is Vermont Railway and Green Mountain and the Clarendon Pittsford, which was another small short line, and the Washington County Railroad, and up in New York and Ogdensburg, which is the old New York side of the Rutland, since I believe around 2002 or 3, are now, all those 5 entities are now one again, just like they were 50 years ago today, like I say, before the strike took place. So, like I say, there's a lot of history here, and history repeats itself. So, who knows? Maybe the railroad will go buy the house again someday. Who's to say that it might not?
Rooftop highway.
There we go.
Yeah, rooftop highway.
As Calvin says,
on rails.
as Calvin says, the
Going
Rutland,
120 miles an hour.
the Rutland was the original rooftop highway, long before the guys with the rubbers on their wheels.
Yeah, isn't it? It's truly amazing. I love it when memorabilia is preserved,
Yes.
not only photographically, but the way you're doing it here.
Yeah.
Who knows what will develop into that? Who knows, some philanthropist entrepreneur or somebody who's very good at writing grants
Yes.
might see what we're doing here today and have a suggestion and
Well,
how this
I'm all
can.
ears, that's for sure.
Yeah, because, besides showing it through the lens of Calvin's camera, it would be nice for the people to come here. I mean, when my kids were little, and Kay and I raised a bunch of
Yes,
them,
you did.
we went to these railroad museums, and
And
there
other-
isn't
and
a
other
child
places.
anywhere that doesn't love the sight of a railroad train.
Absolutely.
How many times did we stand by the tracks and wave? And when that guy would blow the whistle, coming by and wave to us, that was nirvana,
Oh, absolutely.
It
Yes.
still is.
It still
and
is.
it still is. It's great.
Yes, it is.
When I think of, as a child, picking lilacs in our scrubby little knickers or whatever we wore in those days, and walking down and trying to sell them for a penny or a nickel to the people that got off the train, and those people thought we were so pathetic, they gave us a penny or a nickel, and we were
You're glad to
once
get it.
again in heaven. Oh, yeah, great memories.
This is a station in Lisbon up near Ogdensburg.
Oh, yes,
And
been there, done that.
right now, our friend Tim here with us has connections up there, and that's a possible trip for the future for us guys to venture out on.
A
So
nice summer day, huh, Timmy?
Yeah, sure, you bet. It's the Lisbon Depot Museum, and it is preserved as a community village museum in Lisbon, New York, and it was formerly the Rutland Railroad, or the Ogdensburg and Lake Champlain predecessor to the Rutland depot for Lisbon, New York. And you pointed out, I think that is 5 or 6 miles from Ogdensburg, might be a little bit further, but
Just a little,
it's in that
it's
general
right
vicinity.
nearby, and I was just up there a couple of months ago, and so that brings back good memories.
And it has become a community museum.
right.
It's not specifically for trains, but it does have memorabilia and history for the, what would that be, St. Lawrence County?
Yes, it is
New
St.
York,
Lawrence County.
Area. And
Yeah.
very nice, well-done local
And
museum.
hats off to those people in these small communities who preserve that kind of history.
yeah. Well, the weather's starting to break, so I thought maybe we'll move outdoors, but I want to get a couple more shots here.
All right, let's get a couple more shots.
There I am riding the rocket. That's that semaphore when Dad took it down, the one that's standing in the yard right now. And that also gives you a chance to see what it looked like going out there. They were going to make it into the world's largest fishing pier. That was the theory at the time. I don't know if you guys ever heard that. And anyway, as you know, of course, that's all been, the recent flooding of 011 here has really raised the dickens with it. So.
Yeah, the recent flooding raised the dickens with a lot of things, I'll tell you.
Right.
All right.
Now that's my mom standing next to the semaphore on the Vermont side, which is this one here.
Yep.
We've already looked at it,
Yep.
but that's where when it was standing before we took it down, and we're going to show that to you outdoors.
All right. What do you say we take a little trip outside?
Okay, let's do
See
it.
if we can persuade the sun to peek out for a minute.
Let's make it so.
All right, stay with us. From zebra mussels to this, you got to tell me exactly what you did to make that look that beautiful.
Well, after we got it out of the water and put it on the trailer, spent several hours with a putty knife scraping all the zebra mussels off of this thing, and I had a 55-gallon garbage pail full.
Of zebra
Of
mussels.
zebra mussels.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, the thing was about twice as big around, and got it out, and after I got the zebra mussel scraped off it, pressure washed it, got all the mud and everything off of it, primed it, and got it painted up, and to a point where it's not rusting away to anything
Are
anymore.
those original colors, you think?
Yes, they are.
So, we're right on the money.
Yep. And one of the things that I did was this piece on the end, which actually holds this,
Right.
was in pretty nasty shape. I got that all pulled apart, cleaned up, and painted.
Oh, you took it apart?
Yeah,
Did you grease it inside?
Yeah.
Does it turn?
it does now.
You gotta be kidding.
It does now.
You got it.
42 years on the
No,
bottom
look
of the
at
lake.
this! By hand!
Yeah, can't beat that, huh?
I thought maybe Robbie'd have to machine the whole thing all over again on one of those great lathes he's got here.
This is the piece that, unfortunately, I can't get it all the way on there,
Yeah.
but that's
I see where it goes.
yeah.
Right.
And it was very fortunate after we got it out. You know, we discovered this stuff up in the barn, and
Right.
you know,
See, my dad had managed to take this and that off, the ladder, and this as well, because this all would have been pretty well ruined after 42 years on the bottom of the lake. And the plan was to get the rest of the pole, but a little nasty thing, like I say, the fire came to be, and that kind of ended our plans for that for the time being until Joe finally came along this year. And then, like I said, the other one we had Frank take down, and of course my dad took this one here down himself. So that was the easy one
So
to get.
what's next for it? Well, what are you going to do? You're going to put it all together?
Yeah, we're going to try
Yep.
to stand them all up. all
Erect
three of
it?
them.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'd like to get all three of them back up together again.
Now, what would you have to do? Build a cement base?
Yeah,
Or?
yeah. If we can go look at what my dad did is he actually dug it down to frost level. Then he put some rebar in there, and then he put some studs up through some threaded rod, and bolted it right down. And as you can see, it's
Well,
been there
withstood all the storms that we've had
so
since
far.
that time.
Of course, he had some good ideas when he built this tower. So he figured if the tower could stand, a little semaphore could stand. So.
What do you use that tower for now? Anything?
Unfortunately, nothing. The side band was used by Ken LaPlante, my next door neighbor, till just a few years ago when he passed on. That antenna on the right hand side, that's what the side band, that was used for all their CB communications, and they dispatched all the Champlain laundry trucks right off of that
Did
antenna.
they really?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And to make the story more interesting, somehow we got a bad lightning storm one time, and somehow it was not grounded properly. And we never heard who paid the bill on this one, but the Champlain Telephone Company lost a lot of circuits, I'll tell you.
Ooh, did they? No kidding. Aha. Well, it looks like a very sturdy tower, and not in any way going to fall down within the next 2 weeks. I'll tell you that.
No.
That's great. All right, what else you want to look at?
Okay, well, I guess we can move. Well, we can look. Have you showed them any of the other stuff?
Well, let's take a look. Just tell us what you're going to show us, and we'll take a walk right over here with you.
All right, let me set this down.
Here comes Calvin. All right, what do we got?
Well, these right here are the target signals that would have been protecting the draw over at Pilots Point.
Oh,
And when Rob's father bought the semaphores, he also bought the stuff over along the causeways as well. And these two, at least we believe, were on the Pilots side.
Right, between there and Bow and Arrow Point, there was on the Rutland had 4 places between Burlington and here that they crossed over when they were coming to New York State. The first one was called the Long Fill, Allen's Point from Colchester, going over, and then the next one was what they call Bow and Arrow Point, and then the last was Pilots, and then of course I should say the last one was going into Ross's Point, which is where this one behind us comes from. But these were the next set of crossings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. And that's where it would have attached on, where he's got this. Now, what I want to just point out, these are what they call block signals, as these are semaphores. The difference between the block signal is the light changes. As a semaphore, the arm actually moves. You have what they call the upper quadrant, the lower quadrant. You see what I'm saying?
sure.
So it gives you a chance to see the 2 different styles of signals.
This one looks like it's pretty good shape.
Yes. Yeah. And
Yeah.
Joe recently found a place that has some original lenses
Ooh,
that will fit in
ooh,
there.
no
So,
kidding.
as a matter of fact, he just ordered it this morning, I think he told me.
I got the yellow lens coming for this one right here.
Do you really?
Yes, sir.
Oh, this is wonderful.
And an original lens at that.
Come on.
From the original manufacturer.
Come on.
Yep.
Somebody saved them? Like old auto parts hidden in
Yeah.
in an attic somewhere?
Yeah.
Isn't that incredible? It's just fun to look around here. You've got so many things of so many different kinds of descriptions, and lots more that are connected with railroad memories.
Yes.
I thought I smelled a skunk, but maybe I didn't.
Yeah,
It's
there's
not-
been one spraying around here.
Has there really?
Yeah, your nose is right on.
Not another railroad fan? All right, what else you want to talk about?
Okay, we'll take a look at the other one that's laying down that we took off with Frank.
All right, let's go do it.
Okay.
Crossing sign right now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you want to, but like I said, I still want to go up and just hang it for you guys, because I got the picture that goes along with it, so.
All right. So that was up above, huh?
That was right up at the top of that, right between those two light poles, right up there. That was the actual cross bucks, and I've got the other set, but I figured we only needed one set out for today.
Oh, yeah, okay. You carry one, I'll carry the other.
Yeah,
We won't even have to go to church to do it.
that's right, carrying
All
our
right.
cross.
We'll take a walk. All right, this is the one that our friend, the Captain Frank Paps.
Right, got for us, yes. And like I say, that would be the next one that was on the Vermont side, the next semaphore going west, in other words, towards Ross's Point. And like I say, we're trying to hopefully figure out a way that we can get this one standing too, so we'd have all three of them, like when it was originally used on the railroad.
Same? Are they all the same height?
No, there's a little difference. There's I think about 2 feet difference between this one and the one Joe's got over on the trailer.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of different reasons. Like we've said before, there's a lot of unique things that they seem to do on that Ross's Point Elberg draw that they didn't do on some of the other places.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, even the drawbridge itself was different from the other three.
Really?
The one at the Longfill and Pelots and Bow and Arrow. So, and it was also powered. The drawbridge was powered here in Ross's Point.
Yes.
But the others were all manually operated. They had a big like T-wrench or some pictures I don't have with me here, but where they would actually put the thing down through, and the two guys would get on that and turn that big old bridge.
You gotta be kidding me.
I had to have a good breakfast that morning.
Oh, man. Some engineering involved there to make that
Yeah.
job done.
Yes.
So down back you got
Yes.
some signals.
Those are the switch stands that were all in the Rutland. And like I say, there's even a small one, which was what they call the derail. And a derail is, if a train gets away, it would hopefully they could derail it so that it wouldn't do any more damage. And it had a little small.
Who would
small
ever
one
know
on the
that there was
back.
a thing called a derail?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm dead serious.
Wow.
And another thing too, Gordy, which is interesting about the derail, when they were using the kerosene lamps that would go on top of those switch stands, they had a purple lens in it, and that was strictly for in other words, the color purple was for derail, which is kind of unique.
So much to know, so much to learn, and we're
Yeah.
doing it here today. All right, what's next?
Well, like I say, we'll talk a little more while we're talking about lenses. When my dad got the one in Burlington from the bridge there, the one that's on the very top, there again there was no glass, and he tried to find some lenses, but this is back before the days of the internet and all the different connections. And so he did the next best thing. He got some stained church glass.
Oh, I should have
And he
known.
put the glass in there.
Lucky
so-
got lucky again.
Yeah, and he put them in, and Joe saw it the other night. I think it looks fairly good. Not quite as good as an original lens, but pretty presentable just the same.
Nowadays, you might be able to find one.
Yeah, well, that's it. Well,
He found his.
that's Joe was saying. We've got start making connections with the right people. We can find a lot of different things.
Yeah, well, there got to be a lot of connections because there are a
Right.
lot of people doing the same thing you're doing. Maybe not half as well as you're doing it, but it's so nice to see that you're doing it up here in our little corner of the North Country.
That's the way we feel too. I mean, like you said, all those other books they've talked about here, there, and the other place, but today we're talking about right here in our little corner, like you said. We're talking about stuff that belongs to Champlain and Ross's Point and Elberg. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Moors.
You know what? My eye just jumped onto the bell next door, and I don't think you told me where that came from either.
That comes from the Episcopal Church down in Ross's Point.
Come on.
That next to where the old anchorage, which is burned the second time, as you know.
I wonder if it was cast in Troy. Do you know?
Yes, Manili Bell.
How would
Yes.
I know that?
And another thing too, what's nice about that's for Windmill Point. My dad got that for the lighthouse.
He did.
He did.
It's up to you to get it out there.
That's exactly, and that's on the list. The long
The list is getting longer and longer
gets
and longer.
But what's nice about Manili is they cast bells for the lighthouse service, so it's very appropriate.
Yeah, it's a nice bell.
It
It's a
is.
beautiful
It
bell.
is. It's what they call a real bell metal.
Yeah. Has
And,
nothing to do with the railroad business, but you
No.
put it there, so I had to mention it.
Yes.
All right, what do you want to do next?
Let me. You got me off guard here.
I'd love to catch you off guard.
Well, let's see. What do we got left for time?
I don't know. Calvin will tell us. Well, we should have prefaced this whole thing with a glossary as to what is a spectacle and what's a. I mean, I'm a spectacle. I know that. I have mirrors in my house, but that's called a spectacle.
Yes, it is.
And there's a counterweight underneath it. So explain to me this whole deal here.
Well, on the Ross's Point trestle, those counterweights, of course, the spectacles and the order boards were incredibly heavy. And these counterweights were a safety device. When they would go to open the bridge, there was a set of levers that they moved, and it would move the arms. But in the event that the bridge got opened without those levers being moved, these counterweights, they disconnected from the rest of the linkage up at the draw, and would actually pull the order board to the stop position.
Oh,
So
makes
in-
perfect sense.
Yeah,
doesn't
it was a built-in safety in the event that the levers didn't get moved the way they were supposed to be.
That's fantastic. And it really didn't take very much effort to move that weight.
No, it was one of the buildings out on the south side of the draw. There was a set of levers in them, probably about yay tall, I would say, and that's what you would pull on them, and it would make these turn to either stop or go. And that was the one that was so unique about these out on the bridge is there was not 3 lenses in them. There was only 2.
Oh,
And it was kind of weird the way they did it. But with the 2 lenses, it was either stop or go, and there was no caution for right out at the draw.
yeah.
And that's what that one was for there, because that one had the yellow lens in it further up the bridge for the caution.
But most of these lenses actually survived. These are original lenses.
Yeah, those
Robbie?
lenses, my dad was able to save some of them. And like I say, I'm trying to remember exactly where they were on the line. That I don't know for
Yeah.
sure. And like I said, those were some that were still, fortunately, didn't get shot out, or the bird went into them, or
whatever.
or they just fell out of over time. But anyway, those existed, and that was all we could round up because, as you know, the top one I had to end up using the stained glass for the, to make lenses for those. So.
That's amazing.
But
And actually, something else that's also kind of an interest to note is the colors. Most notably, with what appears to be a blue lens. The reason those were that color is these were originally lit with kerosene lanterns,
Yes.
and you would get the yellow from the flame that would go with the blue and actually make what would appear to be a green light.
Don't you love it? We learned that with our Crayolas when we were little kids, didn't we? Huh?
Yes.
That's neat.
And that's why if you ever look at any of the old railroad signals, the green is actually blue.
That's amazing. Amazing. Are there a lot of collectors for railroad memorabilia?
there's, I would say, an awful lot of them. I
Really?
mean, yeah. I mean, you guys have been to some of the railroad shows that you filmed, you and Calvin, but there's other shows now. If you've never been to the one in Albany, called at the Egg down, you know where I'm
No,
talking
no,
about.
I know
You
where it
where-
is,
Yeah,
yeah.
and Rockefeller Plaza. And anyway, but down there, when you get into the bigger shows, like I say, locally, you don't seem to have too much of big stuff. It's more models, toys, things of that nature. You get to some of these other shows, and of course West Springfield, the Big E, and then you start seeing some really impressive stuff. And you'll see people have a switch stand or a lantern or one of these spectacles for sale. You see things of that nature. But like I say, you don't see them so much at the smaller shows because there's just not enough demand for it.
Well, with our modern internet,
Yes.
all kinds of search engines going out there, you can probably find just about anything
Yeah,
you're looking for.
in today's world, yes.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about the counterweights, that's adjustable. I can show you on the one that's on the ground, but there's a little nut or bolt on the bottom,
I see it.
and you could move that
Move it
in or out
sure.
depending upon how how much adjustment you want, how to to counterweight it. So it was very well thought of.
I love it. All right, next.
Okay, all right. Try.
We're just talking about the internet off camera and how important it is to disseminate the information that Calvin and I gather of Hometown Cable in our little corner, talking about the recent floods and how people out in the western central and western part of the United States can see what happens up here. And I just wrote a column for next week about how it took almost, in this day of instant communications, it took almost 3 days before any of the national media ever knew that we had the remnants of Hurricane Irene in our backyard. And how many friends do I know whose houses went down the river, whose trailers went down the river, whose cars that went down the river. So it's important for us to let our viewers know that this program called Our Little Corner and the other things Calvin does are mostly available on the internet at hometowncablenetwork.com and at plattsburgh.com. And how many are up there now? 10,000?
No.
50,000? 5,000?
100,000.
6,452.
But who's counting?
Yeah, who's counting?
Can you imagine the time it takes to get 6,000 of those things? At one time, they were all on VHS tapes piled at Calvin's house, and I would go home and say, "Dear Lord, if you ever granted me a favor, don't let that place burn down till we can get these things archived."
Transferred, I know.
And then it came along. So it is a wonderful resource, and this is a good time to applaud the big guy behind the camera for having started this hometown
It
cable
is.
thing all
It
those
is.
years ago.
We can't sing his praises loud enough.
What do you got back here?
Okay, some of our junk, as Dad would say.
Well, I mean, sometimes I need to get taken behind the woodshed. And I don't know what the reason Robbie has for bringing us back here. So what do you got?
Okay, like I said, I'd have to show you the pictures, but anyway, in between where the cupolas were on the old part of the old Sheridan, where that siding went in,
Right.
the picture of the switch stand with me with my little dog, where that siding went into the shop, in between the buildings, sat this big old winch right here. And like I say, it's been here for a long time, as you can see, but we just never could part with it because it had such a connection, because that was used to load and unload all those freight cars up at the shop. And like I say, I can show you pretty much where it's at if we go back and look at pictures. So I know the history on it. But like I say, it's just kind of neat because the fact we're doing a show about the Rutland, it lets you know that we do have a lot of parts, pieces, remnants.
It's amazing. And there isn't one tooth broken off of that thing.
No, boy, and that's American steel too. That's the best part.
You got a pretty good American steel.
Yeah,
So you got all kinds of wheels and stuff, and
a lot of different things. But I wanted to point this out because, like I say, that because of the fact that it has the tie-in with, it did so much, and this is before they built some of the outside cranes to load the cars. And this, like I say, this goes back. I'm swearing this goes back to the turn of the century. Not this one, but 1900, and maybe even into the late 1800s,
very well. Could
You
do. Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And
Nice piece of machinery. I'm glad you did save it.
yes, and like I say, it's something that should be tried to, if we can someday get all these things together that we talked about and incorporate it into the whole thing.
That's wonderful. Okay, let's take a walk.
Okay.
All right, we're looking at a view up the hill from your place.
Right, looking north. And this is what it would have looked like in April 15th, 1965.
What are we looking for? We're looking for the crossing.
Right, we're looking for the crossing. On the right-hand side, you'll see one of the metal signs, which if Larry had come, he's got one of those. I was going to have him bring it down for the show.
Yes. Oh.
Yes, he's got one of the round ones up at the station, which was from his neck of the woods.
Larry Marnes, yeah.
Yes, and I don't know where the one that's in the picture that Calvin's looking at, I don't know where that one went. But we have the wooden cross, what they call the crossbucks, which spell out,
sure.
railroad crossing.
Without any cars.
How do you spell it without any R's?
Yeah, that too. Oh, look out for the cars. Yeah,
Look
I
out for the
remember
cars.
that. When
How
we
do
were
you
little
spell it?
kids, what a game, huh?
That, my dad always used to say that.
All right.
Okay, and then that's another picture, and that one there is looking towards downtown, looking towards the village, looking west. And this would be the scrapping train, like I say, tearing up all the rails. And that's the time that we took those crossbucks down because everything was being torn up.
Yeah. Oh, what great foresight you had to preserve that.
Yeah, and like Joey and I were saying,
Robbie didn't take those.
my dad.
That's what I meant. Your family.
Yes, we know what you meant.
Yeah.
I still got them. That's the main thing, I guess.
You got it.
And this is looking from the top of the hill when we get up there, and this is looking back to where the American Legion is now. And I was telling Calvin, you can see the top of St. Mary's Academy in that picture. And like I say, these old crossbucks were made out of wood with some type of reflective material. Today, they're all aluminum with a type of reflective material. But like I say, you can tell they were made to last because they're good heavy material.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
Well, we'll take a walk up there and see
Yes.
the way it used to be.
The way it used to be.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
Yep, railroad crossing. Look out for the cars. Can you spell it without any R's? Is that? Have you seen that hanging there before?
You know, I have to say, I don't remember it, but that was, I was too young.
You were too young.
I was
How
too
long
young.
have you been here?
I'm a seasonal person,
Yeah. So you've been
And-
coming here for?
10 years,
You have really.
and my folks lived in Chazy Landing for 7 years back in the late 60s, early 70s.
How did they discover this great North Country from Wyoming? It's a fur piece, you know.
My dad had a fraternity brother. We got Frosty Springs.
Okay, that's my buddy. He won't run over us. He might get us a little wet, but
Yeah, but he might lose my water.
yeah. So they start coming up here.
My dad had a fraternity
okay.
brother from Plattsburgh,
No kidding.
and he was the one
Amazing.
who introduced my family to Chazy Landing.
Yeah.
And from when I was a year old until, golly, 14 or 15, we came up to Chazy Landing every summer.
Isn't that great? So it was a second home.
Really,
Yeah. Isn't this great to see that up there
you
here?
bet it is.
No
You
wonder
bet.
those two guys are smiling.
Yep.
Is it heavy, guys? Because we can leave it there for a week and a half and bring you lunch every now and again.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I want to just walk a little closer, and this has been your dream, Robbie.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this for quite a while, and I said, "Gosh darn it, I've got those things, and what more appropriate time to do it but now? You know, 50 years ago, this was still in service, right here in this very spot. You know what
you
I'm
think
saying?
you're pretty close to where it was?
I know I'm really, really close because if you look down in the pavement, you can see those lines there, and that's where the road's settling. That's the old road bed, and so we're right on the money. As a matter of fact, Calvin pans around, he'll see that this is where it was.
That's wonderful.
I think it is.
Mention the strike again today.
Yeah, let's talk about that strike,
Right.
because we're going to wrap up the show here.
Okay. The strike took place September 25th, 1961. And so roughly 18 days from today's date, 50 years ago, we're right on the money for the time when it took place. So the last trains would have run on the evening of September 24th. And then, of course, after that, they ran again when they was to scrap the railroad and to, move over whatever stuff they had to, whatever stuff they had to finish taking care of, whatever business they had to do, moving various cars that were still left,
That was 2 months after I spoke my first words on the radio in Plattsburgh on the 4th of July, 1961.
It was an important year.
Isn't
It was
that
an important
amazing?
year for Gordy Little, too.
Milestones. There are so many
Yes.
milestones in our lives.
Yes.
And what a life it's been. And as I've said so many times before, I used to spend a lot of time visiting these little towns in the northern tier
Right.
because these little rural towns are so important
Yes, they are.
for the history of the United States, and
That's
we just
right.
brought it all together
We
talking about the railroads today.
That's right. And what their importance was to the community.
I thank you so much for inviting us here. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Another country, well, almost another country heard from over in the corner. And who knows, maybe I'll see you teaching at Clinton Community College one of these days.
Hard to say.
I think I promote that. Robbie, I love your family. We're so glad to see you, Mommy.
I can remember that strike very well because I was working with Champlain Creameries.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, and Mr. Bayshire would bring his bill of ladings, and the strike was going on, and it was quite a, quite a time.
kidding.
Yeah.
Well, I can almost remember that far back. I was only 24 years
I was a day
old.
older than that.
Robbie, don't ever let your interest wane.
Okay, Gordy.
Let us
I-
know if, as new chapters develop, that things, if you
Right.
find new things to add to
To
your
talk
wonderful
about.
collection, let us know.
Well, you guys will be the first on the list. How's that?
I love it. This has been a great experience for Calvin and for me. I always thank our viewers for their suggestions and their comments,
Right?
no matter how many expletives are involved.
Hopefully none.
But I especially want to thank those people whose generous monetary contributions enable this program
Yes.
to be perpetuated on into the future. People think we made tons of money on advertising.
Yeah.
Where?
I know.
But the businesses who do support us and the individuals who drop off a check to Calvin Castine on the Ridge Road in Champlain are so much appreciated, because we want it to continue, especially now since it's on the internet at Plattsburgh.com, HometownCableNetwork.com, and who knows how many living rooms might be showing copies of
That's
our
right.
programs
That's right.
right now.
Right, even as we speak.
Even as we speak, as they say.
Yes.
Thanks again, everybody, for being here. Thanks to whoever controlled the weather for bringing enough blue up there to patch a Dutchman's pants, as my mother used to say, for the conclusion of our program on Elm Street, very historic part of Champlain right here. And who knows where we're going to be next time.